Well, we're back again doing this little do-si-do. Yeah, I'm still on my Final Fantasy binge. Recently, I just actually started 5, so I might be a little late to the party on all of these, but some other stuff has been coming up on my channel, and I wanted to get it out. And now that I've got some free time, I can continue on with our Final Fantasy journey with the sequel, Final Fantasy II. A game that is actually pretty notorious for being known by many as the worst Final Fantasy ever made. And that's not even an exaggeration. Almost every time I hear something about Final Fantasy II, it's almost nothing good. I legit remember one of my friends saying to me in a Discord when I was talking to him about this, and he said these exact words to me. People who say games like Final Fantasy 13 or 15 are the worst Final Fantasy games are simply because they haven't played 2. And after deciding to play it for myself, yeah, it's pretty bad, not gonna lie. But why? What makes this so frustrating? What earned it this reputation? And was there any good in this game whatsoever? Well, how about we get into that, shall we? I'm Crimson Rosso, and here's my review of Final Fantasy II and how it made me hate it.
So, to be honest, I could easily spend the entire, and I mean entire, length of this video doing nothing but tearing Final Fantasy II apart for everyone to see its flaws. But I'm not going to do that. This is a channel where we are as fair as possible to every video game we review on here, even the ones I really didn't like. So let us be fair. What did I like about 2? Well, for starters, the game's visuals are very pleasing on the eyes. Now, in order to experience Final Fantasy II, like I did with Final Fantasy I, I played the PSP version of the game. And the PSP version used the same engine as they did for the 1 remake. So it looks just as samely eye-popping as the original game had. I'd even put my foot down to say that they're even better looking in the sequel. Towns and character designs have a lot of genuine effort put into them, especially the main characters. The enemy redesigns are beautiful and look downright fantastic. My personal favorite out of all of them being the main antagonist, the Emperor's design. And dungeons are both interesting and absolutely incredible to look at, even with their massive flaws. I think my 3 favorites were the Dreadnought airship dungeon, the final level of the game, which was like this crazy angelscape or whatever, and the inside of Leviathan, which, yes, you get swallowed by a Leviathan in this game. That's an actual dungeon. It's actually pretty cool. There were a few others, but those were the standouts for me. And that's pretty much all I gotta say about graphics. So how about we get into the gameplay next? Now, while I do think several elements of Final Fantasy II gameplay is insanely flawed, the concept of it is something I think is actually rather cool. Unlike Final Fantasy I, where you just, picked a set of classes focused on specific abilities, 2 actually gives you complete freedom on how you build a character. Characters may start off with specific weapons, but you can just say, fuck that, and give them something else to master. Does the MC Furion start off with a sword? Well, now you can give him an axe or a dagger and focus on those instead. Does Guy start out with that big ol' axe of his? Fuck it, he's a white mage now. It's such an awesome idea that allows you as much freedom as humanly possible. Even with the restrictions at the time that were carried over to the PSP remake, it's kind of jaw-dropping that such a unique idea appeared. And that's not the only difference to combat, as 2 changes up how you make your party members stronger by ditching levels entirely, and now focuses on giving characters proficiency levels. For example, the more a character uses something like a sword or a spell, the more it will improve and later on level up to deal more damage. Or the more you use the cure spell, the more health you will heal as a result of constantly using it. The only exceptions to this rule are HP and MP, each of which coming with its own way of increasing. MP increases depending on how many spells you cast in battle, and HP increases, well, it increases by you getting your ass kicked by anyone on the screen. So the more you get hit, the more health you get. It's a cool concept. Shame it's executed pretty terribly. We'll talk about that later though. For now, this is all about the good parts of gameplay. So let's go over the last of my pros, and that's pretty much how much this game added on to Final Fantasy's legacy. This game introduced a lot to the series. Characters were no longer just voiceless NPCs, and were now given motivations for why they were fighting. It gives us stuff like the Chocobos, Cid, the Ultima spell was born in this game. It introduced a new, darker narrative in the Final Fantasy, which was an interesting thing to have in games for the time. And this darker narrative, what exactly is it about? It stars 3 people in particular: Firion, Maris, and Guy, whose town is attacked and destroyed by the ruthless Empire. And as a result, they join the rebellion to help defeat the evil Emperor, all the while looking for Maria's brother Leon, who wasn't with them when the rebellion saved them. It's pretty simplistic, but it works for what it is, beating the bad guy. Plus, the story gives justification for 2 to be a lot darker in tone. And when I say darker, I genuinely mean that. This isn't like 1 where the heroes go out to save the day. Several people die, there are moments where entire cities get wiped out by the Empire's cruelty. It's genuinely impressive how hard they went into the darker narrative for a Famicom title back in the day. And I do think that genuinely deserves respect. I can't really think of any other RPG or just game in general that had the guts to do this, especially back then. And last but not least, I think the music for this game was actually pretty good. I know this game gets a bad rap for apparently having pretty lame music in comparison to the others, and now that I'm on Final Fantasy V, yeah, it's not as good as pretty much all of the others, but I don't think it's bad. I actually enjoyed a lot of the songs in there. I admit I started to hum the Chocobo theme a bit after I heard it for the first ever time. But that's pretty much all I've got to say in terms of positives for this game. So how about we get on to the cons it has? Alright folks, it's time. Enough of being nice and fair and all that pussy shit. Let's get into what sucks about this game. Alright, where do I start? Oh man, there's a lot to start with. Okay, we should start with the characters first. Or should I say, the lack of them. So I said in prose that I had respect for Final Fantasy II for being much darker, and I still believe that. Darker stories can be a great way of exploring how the characters' personalities can change as they face hardships from the cold world around them. Except, one problem. Final Fantasy II doesn't do that, because your characters don't have a personality here. Yeah, they talk and have their own names, but outside of that, there is nothing there for me to give a shit about. Like, I can't tell you anything about Firion other than he's the main character, and he has flowers in his hair. There is this one moment where Guy reveals he can speak Beaver, but it's mainly just played up for comedy. It doesn't really have a weight on the characters. And Maria is the girl. That's pretty much it. She does have her brother, Leon, that is later on revealed to be the Dark Knight, but they don't really do a whole lot with that. To be honest, I cared way more about the one-off fourth party members who died because they actually had things like goals and reasons for me to care about. I know you can easily just wave this away with it being their first game where they did this, and that this was from the Famicom or NES or whatever you want for some of its issues, and I get that. But if you're gonna make your characters actually talk and be relevant in the story, other than just being the heroes of light or something, then you need to actually make them characters. That's it for that. So let me get into the bigger flaws of Final Fantasy II, specifically with its gameplay. First off, we need to talk about the dungeon design, because it fucking sucks. And it comes down to 2 major factors. First off, 90% of the dungeons are nothing but long hallways that lead to stairways that either just take you up or down, making for an incredibly boring experience. And the second is tied to what I like to call the troll rooms. Rooms that when you enter, you realize they not only put you in the dead center of the room with nothing to collect, but the enemy encounter rate shoots up to 10 fucking billion, and every step forces you into an enemy encounter that's just there to waste your goddamn time. Even worse is that this isn't some one-off thing in one particular dungeon. It happens in all of them. You just stop wanting to explore the dungeons and the other rooms due to just getting fucking sick of how many times they pull this shit. It's such a bad way to just handle a dungeon. You know, the thing I'm supposed to want to explore, I wouldn't even have as big as a problem with it if it just didn't happen so much. I think whatever god is out there that this never became a trend from Square, because, oh my god. No, keep moving on. So dungeons were botched beyond belief, but trust me, that is nothing compared to how they handled combat. Now, I stated before, the concept of combat in 2 is awesome, but it's unfortunately severely damaged by one major aspect. It completely contradicts itself as a mechanic, leading to one of the most frustratingly tedious experiences I've had in a game in years. Let me explain. I pointed out earlier that the only way to increase health for your characters is by taking damage. But the thing is, there aren't many enemies who target every character for an attack, which means it can just be left down to pure luck if they hit you or not. So in order to make this more balanced, you instead need to have your party members beat the ever-loving shit out of each other, which, while funny, is kind of stupid that you have to rely on this for any hope of keeping your characters balanced. Of course, after hearing this, you probably think, well, I can just use Cure on my party members to heal the damage I inflicted on myself in battle. Well, thing is, you can't. Because if you heal the damage in battle, you end up losing the experience points you put towards increasing health because you healed a party member. And now those points go to magic and cure increases, and you don't get anything out of health. Seems stupid, right? Well, it only gets dumber. If you heal outside of battles, you can increase your cure stats, which can net you a better cure spell that costs you more MP. But here's the thing with that. Base MP will only increase if you use spells in battle. So if you do this a lot without using magic in battle, so spells like Cure and any other spell you use outside of battle will now start becoming too expensive to meet your MP gauge. And oh my god, it takes forever to level up your MP in this game, to the point where it feels like you have to constantly cast multiple spells in one fight to even have a chance of it going even slightly up. Which leads into the same problem of your spells getting stronger, but you not having enough MP to match the costs. If you want my advice, just focus on like 3 or 4 spells for each character. Don't even try to learn as many as possible, it's just not worth it. And it's not like the level ups really help in the long run either. I maxed out the Cure spell in my run of Final Fantasy II, and even at its best, it felt downright pitiful in comparison to not only other spells from different games, but in this game in general. And if you think that weapons escape this kind of problem, they don't. They come with their own set of issues. So did you like to use daggers? Pretty fun weapons, right? Well, guess what? Be prepared to stop using them as you don't get any new ones late into the game. Oh, and bows? Yeah, even the strongest ones are weak in comparison to other late game weapons. You can level up rods, but like, they don't really do a lot of damage even when they're at max level, so they're not really worth leveling up either. So you're just, in the end, better off using swords, axes, or hell, don't even equip anything since your bare fists are really OP in this game. And that's exactly why I call this game just a convoluted, confusing mess. It has all of these great ideas, but they're all executed so horribly and clash and contradict itself so badly. It's like a car crash of a game. It makes all of it just insanely unfun. It was easily some of the most tedious shit I've had in a while. And that's saying something considering I had beaten things like Infinite Undiscovery on the 360. There was also this password system they introduced that you get info and progress through the game and talk to other people, but it got boring to constantly use it halfway in. No one really had any sort of interesting reactions if you gave them the wrong one. You usually just saw a question mark or something. It certainly wasn't horrible like the gameplay was, but it was kind of boring. And that's pretty much it for my cons here. I was just frustrated the whole way through. So how about we just go over to my final thoughts now?
Final Fantasy II is kind of a mess. Its gameplay is incredibly contradictory, its characters are flatter than paper, its dungeons are really annoying. It just kinda sucks, plain and simple. While it does have some interesting ideas, everything it could have done right was botched as a result of just not thinking things through. That's why my final rating for this game is a pitiful 3.5 out of 10. This is one of the few games I genuinely just think is not worth playing at all. You're better off just skipping it instead, especially in consideration for what comes next. And ooh boy, I've got a lot of positives to say about that one for when that video drops. But for now, it's the end of this video. If you liked what you saw here, do me a favor and like and sub down below. And leave a comment down below if you want to chat or just help me in the algorithm. Take care, and I'll see you all next time for some more RPG shenanigans.